Today, let's talk about a pretty good indicator that your relationship is dying. If you stop talking, your relationship starts dying. Unfortunately, what you're doing when you stop talking is you're no longer making a connection with somebody that you care about. And that is super important if we want to keep love flowing between us and somebody else. But very nice people get trapped into a piece of advice that they've heard before, which is if you don't have something nice to say, then don't say anything at all. And there's a place for that. I'll talk about that. But when somebody who really wants to be a nice person has something that they know isn't going to be complimentary and is possibly going to make the other person feel a negative way, sometimes they will hesitate to communicate that because they don't want to do that. They want to adhere to that advice. Now, when is it appropriate to use that advice? If you are participating in gossip, or you find yourself judging other people and trying to kind of tear other people down to make yourself feel better, I mean, yeah, that is mean-spirited, and that's not that you're mean-spirited. Sometimes we just get trapped in some bad habits, but you want to focus on that, figure out what's going on with you, that you're kind of feeling compelled to do that, and retrain yourself so that that's not your go-to for getting yourself to feel good about yourself. So in that case, yeah, if you don't have something nice to say about someone, then don't say anything. But sometimes we have something we need to say, especially in important relationships where somebody has hurt us. We want to communicate it, but maybe we get trapped thinking that that's going to hurt their feelings, so we don't want to communicate it. That happens to people who really work hard to figure their own thing out and then come with it later. But we don't always figure it out, do we? Sometimes that energy sticks around and we become quiet. We retreat into silence. Instead of saying anything, we choose to work it out on our own. And then the next time we're like, I'll just work it out on my own again. And then the next time, the same thing, and on until you retreat so far into silence that you stop sharing the stories and you stop sharing the experiences and the little ways you feel and the little things that are going on with you. So here's an example. If you've got a friend that you see all the time, like, you know, your regulars, you hang out all the time, and then you don't see them for, say, like a week or so. When you see them, you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much to tell you. And then you spend all this time catching up, telling your stories and telling what happened. Contrast that with a friend who you don't see for a super long time, and they're like, how are you? And you find yourself saying like, well, I'm fine. Nothing really new here, same old thing. And you don't fill in the details and you don't tell the little stories, and maybe you hit some highlights, but the communication, the active communication between the two of you hasn't been there. And so you just kind of retreat into a silent interaction and you lose that connection. You might have great love for them and you might still be very close, but you lose that active connection. And in our important relationships, in our romantic relationships, our familial relationships, our really close friendships, we want an active connection, and an active communication is part of that. So, best case scenario, you are able to, if you can't be kind, at least be compassionate and have loving communication. That is, the goal, shoot for that. But sometimes we're mad, or we're upset, or we're angry, or we're hurt, and we just can't move ourselves away from it first. It's going to take a long time. It's going to end up in a long period of silence. Who even knows if we're going to be able to get through it or not, or if we're just going to bury it down where it's going to resurface another time later. Sometimes it's not going to be kind, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. In fact, I would argue that not saying anything is way worse than communicating and saying what you need to say to somebody else. It might hurt them. It might be a very challenging conversation that you're afraid of having. It might be a struggle, but that's how you keep love flowing between you and somebody else, is that you tell the truth and you trust that that relationship is going to weather that truth, that you guys are going to be stronger when you come through it, and that by continuing to strengthen that communication, next time it'll be easier, and the time after that it'll be easier, so that talking is the habit. Telling them what's going on with you is the habit. And not to say those communications are going to be easy, but choosing to have them becomes easier. And that's the way you stay connected, and that's the way you keep love flowing, by continuing to have communion in your relationships instead of retreat into your silence. So keep in mind that when you stop talking, your relationship starts dying, and that communication and connection is hugely important. And you should say something, even if it's not going to be something nice. All right. Thank you for listening. Please share if you know someone who needs to or would like to hear this message, and your views and your likes and your comments and your love is totally appreciated. So much love to you. Have a brilliant day.